So my name is Babak Falsafi. I'm the chair of SIGARCH. I'm not the steering committee chair. Mike Ferdman is the steering committee chair, but he's not here today. So I'm proxying for him. And we're going to start the meeting with the agenda. So ASPLOS'23 organizers will tell us about the stats and budget. 23 program chairs will tell us about the program. We'll have the ASPLOS'24 organizers here to tell us about what they're planning for ASPLOS'24. And then a tentative plan for 25. And then we're going to have a discussion by Natalie about our review processes. And we move on to a conversation with Sean, who's going to tell us about the ACM draft version 2, which I'm sure most of you have heard about because at SIGARCH, at least, we send a reminder to all our members to look at what ACM has planned for us and comment on it. Then we have a quick presentation by Kaza, and we wrap up from there. So ASPLOS'23, that's Tor. It's all here. So you just have to click on the...
Did you reorder the slides? Because I put the budget at the end.
I do in Google, actually. This is directly in Google.
Are you a slide sorter view or something? I've never used it. Google.
You just...
It's right at the end, though.
Okay. So
how do I go to the very end?
And you can just fast forward.
Okay, fine. Okay, we're going to do it that way. All right, sorry. Okay, so... All right. So I was told that I should update people on the budget. So I'm going to just show you what I've been looking at for several months. This is the budget spreadsheet that ACM gets us to fill out, and there's several pages of it. And I'll just sort of quickly describe what I'm showing you. It's an Excel sheet. I just screen captured it. So here you can just see the prices of the different tickets. And then you can see, how many people showed up. This is as of the late registration deadline closing. And so, you can see about how much revenue we had here. So it's like 250 there for that. And then there's the workshops. Maybe one thing to note here is one of the things that's not shown here is that I did an analysis when I was doing the budget order for the hotel, and figured out that about, depending on what the denominator is, 30 to 25% of people who said they wanted to go to the workshops didn't actually pay for workshop tickets. And they're all sort of like, well, there's this question in Hoover that says, do you want to go? So I just assume if I click it, I get to go. And I talked to some people who said, nah, nobody believes that. Anyway, so there's like a culture of not maybe paying for workshops that maybe we want to rethink if you want food at the workshops and you want AV at the workshops, because somebody's got to pay for stuff. Yeah, everyone wants a discount. Okay, so going down here, there's a few things that are blank here. Corporate donations down from last year because Babak was such a good fundraiser and the economy and I don't know, layoffs and whatever. So, but we managed to get 105K. So thank you, sponsors. If anybody here is a sponsor in the room, thank you so much, because you can see a good chunk of the revenue for this conference comes from the sponsors, which helps to keep our registration fees lower. So our total gross revenue there, this is US dollars, I believe, so 382. Okay, so now we get into the expenses part of the thing, and there's not much there at the top. Hoover. So they upfront charge, actually this doesn't seem 100, well, I think I've broken it out. So it says they're about 3,000, but there's a separate line here somewhere for some of the other things that split out for the hybrid stuff. So it actually is closer to 4,000. And then there's like percentage fees for every ticket they take, like, it works at about 5%, Stripe fees plus Hoover fees. So that's that registration fee management line is $15,000. And then, yeah, so down there at the bottom, you can see the 2,300 for hybrid. So there's some overhead, they charge, it's a company, right? So they charge for these things. Poster board rental, $2,000. excursion. So the aquarium has this sort of model where you book the aquarium, you book the venue, and then they want you to buy a certain amount of food. So this is just the line item in their bud thing, which is for renting the aquarium, which we're doing. And then there's like the food that we're going to serve as a separate line item down further along. There's the busing to get there. It's not cheap. And as more people were registering, it kept going up because more people need to get there. Here's just the food thing. I kind of done it in a weird way. So I wasn't expecting to actually show this to anybody. So it's kind of my own mental accounting here. So there's actually 2 breakfasts, but they're half breakfasts because I assumed, well, actually we didn't have money. Initially there was no breakfast. And then I was like, I want to add a breakfast. How can I add a breakfast? And I asked the hotel, can I have like half a breakfast? So can I like have food for half the attendees? And they're like, sure, we'll do that. Money is money, right? So the one breakfast there is actually 2 breakfasts on Monday and Tuesday. And there's no breakfast Wednesday, by the way. We ran out of money, as you'll see when I get to the end here. Coffee breaks. The coffee breaks are weird here because the $23 one is the one that has snacks, and the 7 you'll see later on, we just have coffee. That because again, running out of money. The banquet line here, line 145, is how much it costs actually at the excursion venue, all in for the drink tickets plus the dinner itself, about $104. Hence why we're checking your badges when you get onto the bus to see if you paid. So proceedings, we have 128 papers, so you can see like $11,000 I think I computed for the proceedings. That's to have professional support for doing the proceedings. We're the program committee and organizing committee are going out for dinner tonight. This is how much we're spending on them, max. It'll probably be less than this actually, so it's $3,000. So these are still sort of estimates. This isn't like the finals. You can see there the workshop and tutorial budget amounts, line 184 to the end there. And there's a bunch of things here where we didn't spend anything. That's, I guess, good. And then when you add it all up, we're already in the red. So it's negative $7,000. So we're estimating a loss. But actually, ACM insists that we have a contingency. And so the little thing here at the very, very bottom is if I assume that my estimates are accurate, we're still ahead by a bit. So hence we have a bar open there. So we're spent a little bit of it. But, I copied the ACM person on while I was saying I want to order the bar, and they didn't say don't do that. So I think we're okay. And I think that's all I have for budget. So whoever's next, I don't remember who is next in the order. And
okay, let's see, budget and stats. So this is just sort of a quick summary of the statistics on the program selection. We had about 600 papers submitted over 3 deadlines. There were about 100 submitted in the spring. We recognized, I think we only announced the deadline something like 3 weeks beforehand. So the fact that we got 100 with 3 weeks notice was kind of a miracle. I also say, it's so much fun to run a program committee for 97 papers. Like, it's easy. Everybody's having fun. They read like 5 papers. Like, it was a really jolly experience. Janelle sent me mails saying it was the best piece he had been on. And then we got 270 for the next deadline. And then all of our spirits crashed. The big thing that we did this year was add a major revision option. And the idea is there's a bunch of papers that are close but aren't quite ready to be accepted. And we felt like with a known set of changes they could be accepted. And so the basic rule we went in with was to tell our program committee members that if you want to sign a major revision decision, it's a contract where we are telling authors, if you do this work and you are successful, we will accept your papers. We will have the same set of reviewers. And the idea is this is to avoid taking a paper, submitting it to a different conference with a different set of reviewers, a different set of criteria, and then having it kind of ping pong back and forth for 5 years where we have to review it again. And so this was pretty successful, we think. This was sort of one of the major reasons to go with the multiple deadlines. And our acceptance rate for the major revisions was between like 80 to 95%. And so generally, I think it worked well. The one downside is that we actually tended to accept far fewer papers outright. So for example, for the fall deadline, we accepted only 11% of papers, but then another, I think 17% or something like that went to major revision. So hopefully we will see most of those papers published next year. So the other thing that we got to do was, because we basically ran 3 separate program committee processes, we got to experiment. And so we could try things, and we had a choice, which is if something didn't work, we could stick with it for consistency, even though we know it was a bad idea, or we could change things. And we elected to say better to have a good process than to be sort of a foolish consistency, as some people have said. So for example, we tried having extended abstracts for the first deadline. And what we found was they weren't very good at sort of predicting which papers we wanted to go on for a heavy reviewing. So we dropped that decision. I had this idea in the beginning that it'd be great to have a word limit on papers, because I sort of have a bugaboo. I don't like papers with a ton of figures that I can't read because my eyes are bad. And so I thought a word limit with lots of space would solve that problem. Authors, it turns out, have years of experience on how to format papers. At a certain length, they do not know how to hit 8,000 words to save their life. And so that was a big struggle with a lot of complaints. And so we listened to you, our authors, and we dropped that requirement. And so it was nice to kind of see sort of the differences. I will say I was disheartened when I found, I think sort of 30 to 40% of the papers to the fall deadline violated the formatting requirements of not using 4-point font in their figures, or 5-point font. We decided not to reject all those papers outright, although I think we were legally allowed to. So we gave everybody 2 more days to fix up their papers. And there were about 10 papers that didn't fix the formatting problems that were rejected without review. And the other thing we did was we allowed an appendix in the fall deadline, again, with the hope of giving people a little bit more space to express things, but having the main paper be sort of a very readable length. So we did survey the PC, and we will come back later on. I think Natalie will come talk about lessons that we learned. We asked people, what do they think of the overall process? And unfortunately, having the dark background didn't help me out here. 47% of the people said it was a little more work. 19% said it was about the same work. 30% said it was far more work. And so I think we need to sort of learn how to calibrate what's expected from a program committee. How do we sort of manage having, something like 35 deadlines, it felt like, across the course of the year for people, with looking at assignments and commenting on things and reviews and filling in forms and things like that. When we asked people what was the source of the problem, some of it was just having a few more papers. We actually did not expect to get 600 papers. We actually thought we'd have more like 500, but we were happy to have the papers that we did. The total duration of service, most people don't think about spending more than a year of their life on the PC. And so it's sort of the never ending. We are still actually have PC members serving, doing major revisions for the fall deadline. So we hopefully will really wrap up PC service on this committee in a couple more weeks. And the frequent deadlines was also an issue. So these are all things that we have been in communication with the ASPLOS 2024 chairs about. And so they are sort of actively thinking about what they can do to improve this process. With that, let's see what else we have. So we have author demographics. We have submitting authors from 30 papers with over 2,600 different authors. We ended up with 3 virtual PC meetings, which seemed to work very well. It is a challenge for those of you who have organized a virtual PC meeting that everybody's in a different time zone. If you have a real PC meeting, everybody's in the same time zone, they're all there. But, somehow people, when they're at home, don't want to be awake at 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, it just so happens that I was the one who suffered from this. So I was actually in Cambodia during the 3rd PC, and the PC meeting started at 9 o'clock at night and finished around 7 o'clock in the morning. And so I spent that entire night in a hotel room by myself on Zoom while my family was sleeping in another room. So I have a new appreciation for our colleagues in East Asia who suffer through this kind of scheduling on a more regular basis. So I promise in the future, I'll be more cognizant of when we schedule things. So that is all I have to say about the PC process for ASPLOS 2023. If we could get the ASPLOS 2024 program committee chairs, are there any here to come up and talk?
Hi, everybody. So I'm Madan Muswati from Microsoft Research.
And I'm Dan Safri from the Technion.
Yeah, and we have the distinct privileges of following up after Mike and Natalie, after that, they did a wonderful job chairing ASPLOS'23, and we hope to replicate their incredible feat. So Dan, do you want to?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so one of the things that we've tried to do was to essentially learn a lot from their experience. And so this year we've decided to continue with the 3 review cycles. I think this is well received by the community. And also we believe that major revisions are a great idea. It's a great way to help the authors, improve upon their papers and then push them right across the finish line. And so this year, we also decided not to have extended abstracts based on their experience from last year. So we just started, recruiting a lot of the PC members. And so, again, very humbled to see the community response to our invites. We've been very lucky and we have already recruited 150 PC members. So one thing that we learned from last year, as you can see, is that a lot of PC members, they felt that the reviewing load was a bit too high. And so we knew that we had to spend a lot of time, a lot of effort trying to recruit a large PC. And we were happy to say that we are on our way there. And this year we also, gave some flexibility for PC members to, serve not on all 3 cycles, but also 1 or 2. And as you can see, some of them made use of the flexibility, but many were, really wanted to serve on all 3 cycles, which is, again, kudos to the community. Thanks a lot. So we have some important deadlines right here, and please look at our CFP and please submit your best papers to ASPLOS'24. Thank you.
So as you can see, we are getting started a little bit late with organizing for ASPLOS'24. All I can tell you for now is it's in Southern California. Not to compare to Vancouver, which is great. It's a different vibe. I'm co-organizing. My name is Nael Abu Ghazaleh from University of California, Riverside, co-organizing, co-general chair with Professor Rajiv Gupta, also from UC Riverside. We know a little bit more than it's Southern California. So we have RFPs from hotels coming now from either Newport Beach or San Diego. If you've been there, both are great places. Both have wonderful venues, a lot of exciting excursion possibilities. I feel comfortable to promise you it will be a good time, in addition to great papers that Dan and Madan are organizing for us. So I didn't know, but ASPLOS 1 and 2 started in California. And then for a while, ASPLOS was running every other year. It was alternating between, all of this is in San Jose, Silicon Valley, and Boston, kind of ping-ponged 4 or 5 times. So there's a kind of a long history with California hosting ASPLOS. But it hasn't gone back in, I think, 12 years. 2011 was the last time it was in Newport Beach. So we're privileged to help bring it back home. Of course, it's a good sign that the community is growing bigger and more international, that it's not in California half the time, but it's nice to come back to kind of where it started every now and then. So we look forward to hosting you. Hopefully we're going to be able to put together a great place and kind of try to compete with the great venue that we have here in Vancouver this year. Thank you.
So we don't have any bids for 2025, but there is a conversation with Eurosys about holding ASPLOS together with Eurosys in The Hague in 2025. If there are any bids for 2025, we're happy to have them as well. So that's all we have about 2025. So Eurosys is one of the flagship conferences in systems in Europe, and it's smaller than ASPLOS. This is a proposal to have it at the convention center in The Hague. All right, so Natalie is going to tell us about the multi-deadline.
Wonderful. So I think Mike did a good job of foreshadowing some of the things that we wanted to sort of open a discussion about. And so, I wanted to talk about a little bit about what our perspective as program chairs was that we thought worked well, and what we heard from authors and PC members, and then, potentially open the floor for some comments from the audience. So as Mike mentioned, we added the major revision decision, and we added multi-deadlines. And so one of the hopes was this would distribute reviewer load. As Mike mentioned, people didn't like that it went on for an entire year, but at any given time, there were fewer papers. So that was one of the things. And then as authors, you can take your time and submit when ready, because there's another ASPLOS deadline not too far in the future. As Mike mentioned, the majority of major revision papers were ultimately accepted. And so we felt that this was a good signal. We were hoping that the authors would receive clear, actionable feedback that they could deliver on. And this proved true for the majority of papers. And, it avoids that feeling we all have of shooting at a moving target when you go conference to conference. So it kind of established a fixed set of criteria to meet. And anecdotally, reviewers felt that those revisions were much improved. So we believe that this has improved the quality of the papers that you're seeing over the next couple of days. So as the future, iterations maybe need to think about what is the right threshold for major revisions. Did we take papers that would have been accepted and force them into a major revision because that was an option? So do we sort of do too many major revisions because we could have outright accepted? So that's one thing to consider. Also a discussion of whether or not the third deadline should have major revisions that spill into the following cycle. We have a third of our PC that's still on the hook to do service, and they're tired and we're tired. And so maybe this is another thing to think about. And then what worked less well was really the PC load issue. It was higher than typical because we didn't have a lot of data to predict on what would happen in terms of submissions. PC reviewers reviewed an average of 23 papers, I believe, compared to what maybe 15 to 18 is more common for some of our conferences. And so as Mike has already highlighted some of the pain points, so I think that we really need to think about how to make this manageable. Also think about, now there's a lot of concurrent service. ISCA or ASPLOS service overlaps with ISCA, Micro, HPCA, OSDI, et cetera. It's overlapping with everything if it goes on for 12 months. And so how to manage that. So, future iterations will have more data to estimate submission counts. So I think that's good. PC members, as Madan and Dan noted, some are not serving for all three deadlines. And so I think that giving that flexibility is also good. There was also imbalance across deadlines. We hypothesized that because the first deadline was relatively little notice was why it was lower. And so this may, even out naturally as people get more adapted to this model. Also incentivizing to submit early. I will mention that the first 2 volumes of papers appeared in the ACM Digital Library early and have already been downloaded over 72,000 times. So people are reading the things that you're writing. So maybe you want to get them out there early. And so just wanted to also comment on extended abstracts, which I think has been a source of discussion over the last several years. The purpose, these were not, Mike and I carried on a tradition that had been established for a couple of ASPLOSes. This was not our idea, but the idea was it would provide filtering to reduce PC workload, and having more reviewers look at these short extended abstracts would reduce randomness. We ended up scrapping them after the first cycle because they didn't filter very many papers. We found a lot of PC members gave the benefit of the doubt, and so a lot of papers advanced. Also, authors really don't like them, and so we heard that as well. So, and as Madan and Dan noted, no extended abstracts for ASPLOS 2024. There may need to be some ongoing discussion of this or a survey of the broader community, but for now, I think we're pausing in the use of extended abstracts going forward. So that's what I wanted to kind of say to seed some discussion. I think we're okay on time if we can take a couple questions or comments from the audience. Mike. You can use the one up here.
So I guess my question for the audience is, we decided to give you all about 6 weeks for the major revision. We know other conferences make it more like 6 months. We felt like 6 weeks was sort of enough. You know, it scoped what reviewers would ask for, and it also meant you wouldn't spend the next half year working on a paper you really want it to be done with. And so I'm interested if there's any feedback from authors on if that worked out to be about the right amount of time for revision, or if it should have been, you know, we should have let you skip a deadline and submit.
How big was the ask to be for, authors? Could we ask for a lot of things? And we ultimately deferred to authors. We told reviewers, ask for everything in the kitchen sink if you feel that that is necessary for acceptance, and let authors decide. I think there was only one paper that did not submit a major revision, so I think the ask was too big, but most of the authors put, their best effort into meeting that goal, so. Personally, I think that it would be great to look into this. So I think it's something that will be on the steering committee's agenda. Mike and I are now promoted to the steering committee, so we can certainly pursue that, because I really like what the programming languages community has been doing, and I think we could adopt that given this kind of model. So. One thing I'll say about the modulating the sort of review load is we did increase the PC as we went along. And so we added people, every cycle, but it still ended up being a lot of papers. I think the shadow review question is sort of a separate question, and whether or not that's something that the community wants to consider would be kind of outside of the scope of our experiment, but could be taken up by the steering committee. So. One of the challenges, I think, is that HotCRP is not well configured for multi-deadlines. And so what we ended up doing was we spun up 3 HotCRP instances. So it forced PC members to juggle summer HotCRP and spring HotCRP at the same time, creating this confusion. And so it was not a great interface. We tried to suggest to Eddie that he could do things about this. Other people could also maybe suggest that he could do things, because other communities that use HotCRP are also doing multiple deadlines. Yeah, the user interface for reviewers and sort of knowing what was due when was not great in that regard. So I really appreciate that comment. Also, getting timely, responses to major revision review requests was a little bit painful. So we need a better system, and I appreciate your comment. So. We could certainly, that's something that some PC chairs have done. I don't know. That's what I was thinking. We did for one, but maybe not all. So, some consistency there.
We will consider it. Obviously, it's good for the authors.
I mean, one of the challenges was that there was a large number of papers where we didn't actually get the R1 reviews in until 2 days before the R2 deadline. And so we sort of, that sort of spread, the sort of overlap of the two processes meant that there wasn't a clear date when R1 was over, and we could do that. And so I think if we could, in the future, get the reviews in a more timely fashion, it'd be easier to have that announcement. But I definitely agree that I think it's great to give people early notice.
Limited degree of interactivity. So, we added a period where authors could ask clarifying questions of reviewers if they didn't understand the reviewer comments. I don't know if Mike remembers, it was fairly lightly used by authors. So it might just be getting people used to this system. And we didn't engage it during the major revision process. We engaged it sort of more during the traditional rebuttal process. And I think also because, we sort of said, here are the things you need to do. Please do them and we'll re-review your paper. And we didn't want to add too much load to PC members to be too responsive, but we did try and have some interactivity, but it didn't have a lot of uptake.
I guess my sense was there was 2 issues. One is I think we there were several times when we encouraged the PC members, if they had a question, we said sort of like, go ask the authors. Instead of speculating what they would do, just ask them instead of rejecting them because you don't know the answer. And so there was some of that. The other thing I think that happened is we had, I think, a 5-day discussion period. And we're a little sensitive, like if you're an author and it's mid-August, you're on vacation, you get a question, or it's mid-September and beginning of classes, you get a question and you have like 24 hours to respond in this review period, it's kind of high stakes and you have to be very responsive. And so we also were sensitive to not wanting to pester authors where they had to sort of feel very edgy about responding very quickly to reviewers. And so I think there's sort of there's a conflict there between having a short review period, discussion period, because we had to have 3 of them, and wanting to have that kind of discussion. And so I think, you know, we need to evolve how that works and sort of develop some practices of how we make it work.
I would say that my feeling was reviewer fatigue mainly manifests itself as late reviews as opposed to poor quality reviews. I mean, I have to say our PC members were amazing. I mean, the reviews I thought by and large were super high quality and very, you know, detailed and thorough. And so my feeling was on the fall deadline, we had a lot more people who were late and were just kind of running out of steam. And they got it done and generally high quality, but there was a lot more nagging involved. So that was where I saw the fatigue, was in just the timeliness. So. Okay, if there are no more questions, I think we'll turn it over to, unless Mike, did you have something else?
I had another question to the audience. So I've talked to a couple of people about this today, and it's really just a thought experiment, which is to say, if ASPLOS gets a lot bigger in the future, what do we want the conference to look like? Like if we had twice as many papers, would we want to go to 5 days? Would we want to go to 8 tracks? Would we want to go to 3-minute presentations? There's sort of a lot of things we could do, and I think it sort of behooves us to think about it in advance so that we don't have a general chair running around at the last minute trying to sort of scramble to do things the old way when we've outgrown it, and to sort of have a deliberative process where we can involve all the authors. And so it's not just the general chair and the steering committee who has to make decisions in isolation, but it's actually informed. And so I think if you have ideas on how you would like to handle a much bigger conference in the future, you know, have that conversation over dinner, have it over lunch, talk to steering committee members or PC chairs, general chairs, and pass on your thoughts about what you think it should look like.
Okay, thanks everybody. Is Sean here for the next bit? Yes. I think we need this slides back up. Yes.
Okay, thank you for being here. And I want to tell you in advance that I will give a brief presentation, and this presentation has an action item for every one of you who are sitting here. And I want to thank you in advance. So I'm here kind of giving you this presentation on behalf of the CARES committee. Todd already gave a very nice overview about what CARES committee does, and I guess most of you already know. So particularly what I want to tell you today is you may already see it from the SIGARC mailing list. So this is about, there's an article on the March issue of Communication of ACM. After the complaint, what should the ACM disclose? This is an article actually I recommend all of you to read, and I will give you like 4 minutes of overview about what is there. But there are many other things there that I recommend you all to read. And then the action item is, this is an article that call for feedback. Okay, so the overall background is, as you probably all know, there's some very serious violations about particularly conference review, publication in some recent years. And it's a very serious thing, right? Affect the careers and also the safety of members in particularly this community. And beyond this community, right? Later on we realize actually it's a broad thing. And ACM in the last few years actually has spent a lot of effort. I think because of the call from the community, ACM has spent a lot of effort, money into investigation and also into enforcing the sanction. But at the same time, our community there's still call for ACM to revisit its disclosure policy. Basically, after the investigation, after the sanction, what kind of information ACM should and could disclose to the community member. And I think particularly if you remember, there was actually a HotCRP blog just talking about the community has a number of questions regarding this investigation and disclosure. And kind of like in response to these questions from the community. So back in, so 2 years ago, ACM set up a committee to develop a policy recommendation on disclosure of findings that result in penalty. And this particular article actually is written by this committee. So after 2 years of discussion, collecting feedback, so they came up with a recommendation, and this article in Communication of ACM talk about a lot of thought behind their proposal. And you will see that they really put in a lot of thought, and then there's really a balance between, on one hand, we want to disclose information, right? They talk about to harm, particularly for harm prevention. But on the other hand, there's more extensive disclosure also have significant risk to individuals. And there's because it can interfere with, people who want to, right, may have a violation, but they want to correct their wrong behavior. And there's also an issue of the lawyers actually are suggesting ACM, saying they should disclose less than what they're currently disclosing, because potentially people can sue ACM, and there are a lot of potential problems there. Okay, so this article proposed a update to the current disclosure practice. And I just want to give you a very brief overview. First of all, what is currently being disclosed? So here I put up this table, and this is just for publication-related violation. So for publication-related violation, there are 5 different levels, severity levels. And you can go to this webpage, you can see very clear definition of this different severity violation. Current practice ACM is conducting is for minor cases, right? Like non-intentionally, that is totally correctable, or maybe it is intentionally, but has very minor impact. This information is only disclosed to the people who directly made the complaint, and the person that is being, is called respondent, that is being accused of violation and found out that they made the violation. So this is for minor cases. And then when there are very severe violation, there's additional disclose to dean or chair or supervisor of each party that are fined in violation. Okay, so this is a current practice. And the proposed change is that for minor cases, the proposed change would add additionally disclose to any harmed individuals. So you can see more details. Basically, the idea is the people who filed the complaint may not include all the harmed individuals that are confirmed by the investigation. So there's this proposal of, we will also want to disclose to these people. And then for more severe cases, the proposed change wants to say that ACM should additionally disclose the finding of this severe violation first to those witnesses that are involved in investigation. And then secondly, additionally disclose to leaders of a community, for example, the chair of related SIG, because the idea is when you have a very severe violation, potentially there's a harm not just to individual people, but also to the broader community. And therefore the leader in the community may want to know the situation and then see what kind of harm prevention they can do. There are also more information in this proposal because this is a very important matter. So there's an experimental period, and so there's also mechanism to collect feedback and then make further further adjustment. So there are more in the article, and of course, if you read it, you will see that of course this one proposal does not address all the questions. So for example, there are questions mentioned in the HotCRP blog, such as, the investigation take long time. Even with all the, best effort, it will easily take more than 2 years, for example. So what exactly we should pay attention to during the investigation. And also, like, for example, we have very clear, penalty, severity level definition for publication related violation. What about those cases that goes beyond publication, and also during the enforcement, right? What about those activities that goes beyond, say, conference? So there are many questions, and the ACM really want to know what you think. So there are these 2 links. It's you go there. You may need to be asked to create an account. So it's a little bit complicated, but I think it's really worth it. And I really, really hope that you all go there. There are places you can leave your feedback section by section. Basically, you can say, oh, for this proposal, right? For this particular paragraph, what feedback I have. There's also a place for you to just leave general concerns and reflection. Many of you may feel like that's an easy place for you to leave a comment. And I just cannot emphasize enough how important it is for hopefully every one of you to go there and say something. Why? Because first of all, I think this is something that is particularly matters, right, to this particular, our ASPLOS community. And because of the recent, there's some very, tragic event. I think it matters to all the researchers, to our students. And another thing I really want to tell you how important this is, because for ACM, I think in the past, a lot of times, a lot of decisions are made without getting feedback from the community. So actually a lot of people really tried really hard to convince ACM that they should create this venue to collect feedback from the broader community, right? Instead of just a small number of people, for example, in the publication board or in the ACM council, to widely collect feedback from researchers, maybe established researcher, junior researcher, or students, right? To collect the feedback and give time for them to submit comments before ACM make a decision. So now ACM is giving us this opportunity, and I hope that even if you just leave a comment saying, thanks for listening to us, right? Or even if you're just saying, this seems to be a tricky issue, but I'm glad that someone is thinking about it, right? So any comments you have, and also like right now there are relatively few students there, but there's a small number of students leaving comments. And when I read it, I really feel like I almost want to cry just seeing, students' perspective. So all of you leave a comments there, and it will be really, it will help the whole community a lot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sean. All right, Kaza.
Hello, everyone. My name is Haiyue, and want to introduce.
Hey, it's August. We're from Princeton.
Yeah,
And we represent this, and we represent the CASA steering committee at today's business meeting.
Cool. So we just want to give a brief stats on the mentor-mentee, the mentorship program that we run for CASA this year. So for me, the senior architect, we completed the matching the week before conference, and then we made sure that we prioritize the students' preferences, and we were able to accommodate all the students in person that are willing to participate in the mentorship program. So that's very good. We had a lot of senior architects signing up for mentoring, and thank you for all of your efforts and time putting into this mentorship program. So we want to shout out to all the mentors who, especially the mentors who sign up for mentoring 3 or even 4 students. These are the names. Thank you so much for the help and effort. And then we also have a Meet Senior student, and we want to send kudos for the senior students who sign up for to mentor more junior students. So we have the stats here. We are still able to match most of the students. And this is a great experiences because I heard positive feedback from both senior and junior students for the program. And then this is not specifically related to ASPLOS, but this is the long-term mentoring program that we as CASA is running for. So this is a 1-year mentoring. We typically meet once a month or like 2 months. So right now the first time is this COM 2022. It starts in summer 2022. We had 38 mentees and 25 mentors. And excitedly, there will be a ISCA travel grant for this long-term mentoring program to meet their for the students to meet their mentors and ISCA. And then COM 2023 rounds will be starting sometime in July. And we would be really glad if some of you might be consider signing up for a mentorship. Because this is kind of a low time commitment and you get to meet people outside your institution, and that will be a great help for the junior student. I personally benefit a lot from this mentorship program. So yeah, and then also kudos to mentors who sign up for 3 students. There are also a couple of mentors who sign up for 2 students, and I just appreciate all of your time putting into this mentorship program. All right, next up we have more mentorings and ISCA, PL, and then we have a ISCA PLDI student social. We are collaborating with UArch, which is the undergrad architecture workshop, and then PLMW, I think it's the programming language mentorship workshop. So I think CASA is looking for a PhD student to help from the ISCA side for the social events. So anyone, if you're interested, feel free to reach out to us or like the CASA in general. Right, and then we're looking forward to the meetups at ISCA for mentor and mentee pairs. All right, yeah, to wrap up, please sign up to mentor if you have any availability. It's a great opportunity to meet other people, and then we really appreciate your help and effort. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Kaza. I guess that's it, folks. Thank you all for attending this business meeting. Look forward to seeing you next year.